Hey, Miss Lil. How you doing, sweetie? Good. Where is she?
She's in the corner.
She's over there. She's looking good, though. She got her grooming a couple weeks ago. She still looks good. Lily, you look darn good. Friday, Baylor College of Medicine and Friends of Baylor. Let's jump right to the COVID news because COVID is beginning to emerge as we expected it would at the end of the summer. So early indicators, test positivity is up, emergency department visits are up, little bump in severity and deaths, but not that much. If you look at the wastewater analysis from August, you can see quite a big bump in all parts of the country. And here's a map that just shows it's pretty much, the most involved is in the west, but there's also the southeast, and of course Indiana. I don't know why it's up in Indiana. The TEFI data came in last week. No measles detected, there's no bird flu around. Almost all the respiratory viruses are falling, as you expect them to do in the middle and end of summer. And COVID is low in Texas, but it's beginning to increase. Now, this is interesting to me. It may not be interesting to anybody else, but I want to show sort of the challenges in deciding what target should be for the vaccine. So, unfortunately, one of the unfortunate things that have happened with HHS is we're getting a lot less data on the emerging sequence variation. And so the last sequence analysis we have for COVID from the US is June 21st. So it's fully 2 months ago. And back then in the beginning of the summer, you can see that the dominant strain here was LP8 and NB1.8. Forget those, I want to show you the tree. So this to me is really fascinating. This is the evolutionary tree of COVID and how we follow all the mutations. And in 2023, the dominant strain was that JN1 strain. In 2024, it was these flirt variants, all the Ks. And then this past year, it's been LP8.1. And if you recall, about 2 months ago, I pointed out that there's this emerging one. It was a recombinant of JN1 and this other XDV that became known as Nimbus. NB1.8.1, then had another mutation that became XFG, and that has been the emerging dominant strain. But if you look at the data from June, well, they're on the floor, throwing the data around. If you look at the data from June, it was, LP8 was one of the stronger ones, the second most, the second highest variant. So, if you look as of June, it looked like there was this battle taking place between this lineage going up here, LP81, and then this new variant, the ones that came from China and Europe, down here, the XFG. And Lily is now eating the data. Lily, it's not. What are you gonna do? You bring a dog onto the set, and next thing you know, data disappears. Okay, why is that important? So that is the most recent data we have in America. But if you look at the travelers' data, that's people coming in, we're getting more data. So this is the big bump in the rise in COVID in all the people entering from planes, and these are airports, beginning in last February, but now going up all through August. So you can see this rise in August. And in that data, XFG, not LP8, is the dominant strain. So why is this important? Well, if you look at what's coming in and what's going on in the rest of the world, this is the lineage that is dominating. If you're the last data we have with the US data in June, looked like it was kind of evenly split. And the reason that's important is the recommendation for vaccine development just came out a few weeks ago and suggested we ought to be doing LP81 as the target. And in fact, it's not the right target. The right target ought to be XFG. So by not keeping up with it, the only data we have is what's coming into the U.S. There's no question XFG will be the dominant variant in the United States, and going forward, that should be the target And I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to be LP81. Now, does that make a huge amount of difference? I'm sure there's enough relationship between these that it'll be effective. But, why not pick the right variant? Anyway, so the CDC has recommended vaccine for most adults age 18 and older to get COVID. And they acknowledge that the COVID vaccine definitely helps you from getting seriously ill and hospitalized and reduces death. They point out that it's especially important if you're over the age of 65, my peers, or have high risk for COVID, or if you've never gotten COVID or never been vaccinated, so to get some immunity. The CDC said parents of children aged 6 to 17 years should discuss the benefits of vaccination with their healthcare provider. What? They should be saying well, never mind. That to me is ridiculous. It ought to be everybody over the age of 6 months should get vaccinated, period. That should be the recommendation. That's what it has been, and they changed to this mamby-pamby stuff discuss it with your healthcare provider. Like they're up to date on all the variants. You all are more up to date on the variants than most doctors, so I don't know. And they also said they removed COVID from recommended immunization for healthy pregnant women. I mean, how stupid is that? It's shown that women have complications if they have COVID during pregnancy, and it was highly recommended by all the women's health groups that you should get COVID vaccine. So again, my recommendation is everybody over the age of 6 months should get it, and if you're pregnant especially, you should get it. Now, that was the CDC. Because there was a little bit of controversy about that, the American Academy of Pediatrics released their own recommendations. Their recommendations are for children aged 6 to 23 months, under the age of 2. They strongly recommend that you get a COVID vaccine. That is because kids under 2 have problems with it and have a lot of complications, and so they strongly recommend it. They were a little bit, I think, ipsy-pipsy on the 2 through 18. They said, recommend a single dose of age-appropriate COVID vaccine from 2 to 18 if you are high risk for COVID, if you're in a long-term facility, you've never been vaccinated, or you have household contacts who might be like, multi-generational families. But then they also recommend a vaccine be available for children aged 2 to 18 who do not fall into those risk groups, but whose parent or guardian desires them to have a vaccine. So parents who want their kids to get vaccinated should get vaccinated. Anyway, I find this very confusing, and I think it's really not helpful. My recommendation is everyone 6 months or older should get a vaccine for COVID. And if you're pregnant, you should definitely get a vaccine for COVID. And I'm sorry that there's not unanimity of recommendations, but my job is to help you navigate that stuff. So there are 3 vaccines available, the Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax. I mentioned before the FDA has targeted the JN1 lineage, if Lilly hasn't eaten it, this JN1 lineage, but they're strongly suggesting LP8.81 be the strain as a monovalent. I think it should be XFG, or a bivalent would be good, LP81 and XFG. That's the Klotman recommendations. No one, of course, no one's paying any attention to that except for my sister, and I don't think the FDA has called my sister recently. But you never know. I got to check with Janet, see if they have. The American Academy of Pediatrics also suggested and recommended that for if flu season is also going to be coming up, that children starting at 6 months and older should have a flu vaccine. And they also made some recommendations for RSV and hepatitis and meningococcus if you want to go online to look at those. But basically, they're filling in. I appreciate the American Academy of Pediatrics because they're sort of filling in for what the CDC should be recommending. Remember in the old days before COVID, we used to worry about really bad bacteria that were resistant to antimicrobials? Well, the WHO has now created a center of genomic surveillance because there have been so many concerns about reemergence of resistant microbes, bacteria rather than viruses. And so there's a new Center for Genomic Pathogen Surveillance that was created by the WHO to help people navigate this. So that's good, because I'm really worried that reemergence of C. diff and resistant staph and TB are all still out there and important. Well, remember I promised I'd give you an update on the dog aging project. So another disappointment, I have to say. So this is a giant survey with many, many dog owners. 47,444 dogs across the U.S. their owners have been having surveys from January 2020 to December 2023. And the survey question is like, what are your dogs exposed to? This is more like environmental exposures. So apparently, there's a lot of things, but I'm going to highlight my favorites. Apparently in the West, dogs spend more time on gravel, on astroturf, and swimming in rivers and creeks. In the South, they're exposed more to air fresheners, regular weed control, and regular pest control. In the Northeast, they're consuming a lot of non-municipal water. I'm not sure exactly, I guess streams. Exposed to radon, wood fireplaces. In the Midwest, lead, regular weed control, and swimming in ponds and lakes. And so the recommendations for dog owners for a healthy dog life is, if you live in the Northeast, you might need to watch out for more infections like tick-borne diseases. If you live in the West, focus on dental care. If you live in the South, be careful about skin health. In the Midwest, they said, well, they have their own patterns, but they know what they are. I've invested a lot of my energies in the Dog Healthy Living Project, and I'm very disappointed. It hasn't been very helpful. Oh, and okay, another cool thing in the news. Remember we talked about the last time the first pig to human kidney transplant, which is very important because very limited number of organs, and it seemed like it worked for a while. There's no long-term success. They just tried in China the first pig to human lung transplant, and it was published in Nature Medicine. Didn't do so well. A lot of rejection, a lot of antibody-mediated rejection. Lung didn't do well. It was in a patient that was brain dead. So anyway, that's not ready for prime time. Pigs to human, not ready for prime time. And one more example of why you shouldn't want to live in Mississippi. Mississippi now has the highest infant mortality rate of any state by a significant amount. I never wanted to live in Mississippi anyway, so just one more reason. Well, I want to end today with a bunch of shout-outs. First of all, congratulations to Dr. Rachel Davis, Doctor of Nurse Practice, Director of the Doctor of Nurse Practice program in the School of Health Professions. She was just elected President of the Council on Accreditation of Nurse Anesthesia Education Programs, and she does a great job. Our nurse anesthesia program is absolutely outstanding under her leadership. And congratulations to Dr. Sai-Wai Cheng, Professor of Molecular and Human Genetics, who received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of Chinese Geneticists in America. Not Chinese geneticists, but Chinese geneticists in America. She's honored for her 4 decades of groundbreaking contribution to the field of cytogenetics. Okay. And then today marks the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, devastated communities in the Gulf from Louisiana to Mississippi, including the tragedies of New Orleans. Just days after the hurricane hit, Baylor agreed to help the administration of Tulane University keep their School of Medicine moving, and they brought the entire medical education program to the Texas Medical Center with support from UT Houston, UTMB, and Texas A&M medical schools.
Welcome back to the classroom. Welcome back to Tulane.
So a month after that disaster, Baylor opened its doors to Tulane's faculty, medical and graduate students, and residents to allow them to complete their academic year. So they did not lose out on a year. And first and second year Tulane students were based in this building, the Cullen building, and they were taught by both Tulane and Baylor faculty. The third and fourth year students went around to all the other affiliated hospitals to get their clinical training. And in addition to being the academic home for Tulane, Baylor faculty and residents helped provide care for 25,000 New Orleans evacuees who were in the Astrodome. And as best I can tell, it was the only use of the Astrodome that has made any sense. Another landmark that needs to be torn down, but I don't know. But for the purpose of housing 25,000 people from New Orleans, it worked very well. We had 1,000 doctors and residents from Baylor, UT Health, and private physicians all take care of those people who were displaced. And it really is worth remembering. It was we take great pride in the fact that there was a medical school in trouble, and we were able to, our community, Baylor community, and the Texas Medical Center, basically save Tulane's year. So it's good to remember that, and I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to do something for our community and New Orleans. So have a wonderful weekend. Have a great Labor Day. It is Labor Day weekend. Have a great Labor Day, and I can't wait to see you next week.